Okay, today, as you can see here, research. We're continuing to look at the concepts of writing a research paper, piggybacking on last week's lecture, where we covered the various topics that I think are very urgent and timely topics, contemporary topics, right, that we're grappling with in society, flashpoints. Um, uh, I'm just going to go ahead and read from the notes that I have here, and then I'll elaborate. Research papers are used to deeply examine topics, thoroughly analyze issues, and demonstrates students' ability to enter into an academic dialogue. When writing a research paper, you need to do more than just present facts. You also need to critically examine issues and ideas in a way that helps your reader understand your interpretation of the topic. The main format of a research paper is the academic essay. We're familiar with that. We've written one, the expository. Essays are often assigned in university and college settings as a way for students to expand their understanding of a topic and develop their critical thinking and writing skills. And that's going to be an important concept moving forward with with the argumentative essay and with the research essay is develop your critical thinking and writing skills. However, you will also find research papers and essays in a variety of publications, from academic journals to popular magazines, as we probably already know in doing our research for our expository essay and and our argumentative essay. Different disciplines and different professors may have you have different expectations with regard to your essay's content, organization, style, and format. For example, some professors may ask you to write an expository research paper. Uh, in this case, you will be expected to explain an issue without making any overt argument for one or the other side. And that sort of became an issue with some of us. It wasn't huge, but with some of us, it became an issue with our expository essay. The language that we surrounded and built within our essay seemed to, at times, dip its toes into the waters of argumentation and persuasion, which we needed to avoid with that. But more commonly, what we're asked for is to write an argumentative research paper in which you take a side on an issue and use your research to support your position. When you're assigned a research paper, one of your first tasks is to find out what kind of research paper, expository or argumentative, that your instructor or professor wants. Okay, so I think we've touched upon this already. Whereas we've written an expository and now we're writing in the midst of writing an argumentative essay, the research essay is going to focus on both. It's going to be expository in that it's going to provide information, and it's seemingly, with regard to the background information, it's seemingly unbiased way. But it's also going to be argumentative. It's going to combine the two. I think the better essays do this. And the argumentative part is, of course, you picking a debatable topic and picking one side of that debate in order to expound on. Okay, let's look at the overview of the research essay. Okay, so overview. The research paper genre is flexible, allowing it to be used in a variety of ways. Different disciplines have different requirements for research papers. For instance, a research paper in a scientific discipline may require a formal methods or results section. We won't have that within this class. A typical argumentative research paper of an English discipline, such as this class, however, tends to have the following features. An introduction that identifies the research paper's topic and purpose while clearly stating a thesis or main point that you will support or prove. The introduction should offer background information and explain why the topic is important. And we've covered this. This is nothing new. We've covered this with expository and again with argumentative. So the body paragraphs that use an issue by issue or chronological pattern to present the results of your research. The body is divided into sections with headings. What we've spoken about this before. That's for longer research papers using headings or subheadings. We're not going to do that necessarily with this paper. I'm not looking out for some individuals had headings in their expository, but we're not going to have headings with it because the paper's not long enough. It's only 5 pages long minimum. You know, if you presented a paper to me that was 13 pages long, yeah, I guess you could break it down, point by point with a heading, in order to give some sort of eye relief to the reader. But we don't need to do it for this research paper. A conclusion will also be part of the overview of a research essay that restates the thesis or main point of the research paper and offers a brief discussion of the implications of research. Often a call to action is included in this section. Okay, so this is something we're going to have to do with our argumentative essay and expand on our research. We're not only going to restate the thesis, in our concluding paragraph. But we're going to discuss the implications moving forward. So if you're going to do the Black Lives Matter, give some background information, chronological background information, uh, sort of define what it is, and then jump on one side of the debate if you think it's worthy or not. But then at the end, in the concluding paragraph, and you might talk about it moving forward, exponentially push BLM, Black Lives Matter, into the future and see where it lies and the implications of that would be something that's important. And then a call for action. Now that I've armed you with this information of doing this research on Black Lives Matter, and then attesting to where it currently is, now you need to go forward and do good things with this, a call for action. You're going to have a works cited section, this last bullet point here, not reference. I've had there are a few essays expository that had reference pages. We can't do reference in MLA. That brings you down a rung in terms of a grade, not sticking to MLA. Because this shows that you're simply not paying attention, or you're reusing an essay from a prior class that was APA. When you include a reference page, then your in-text citations have years in it, right? So we'll avoid that. We're doing MLA, right? Which means our in-text citations are completely just the author's last name and page number. If we don't have a page number, you don't include it. If we don't have an author's last name, then you use the title of the, in quotation marks, of the article that you read, whether it's online or physical. Works cited as standardized style. As you can see here, just MLA standardized formatting style. Okay, this is sort of an overview, but inquiring, defining your topic, angle, and purpose. Start out by identifying what kind of research paper you're being asked to write. So there are two majors, as we just covered. Type of research papers: expository research. It means to exhibit or explain what you have discovered about your topic. We're going to do that. That's part of I think it's going to be a hybrid mixture of these research papers. I think it's important for it to be a hybrid between these two. Expository research papers explain an issue, event, or trend without making an overt argument on one side. So we're going to make an argument, but we're going to really provide some strong expositional sort of background information. And then we're going to springboard into the argumentative research part of it. So argumentation involves choosing one side of the issue or debate and using your research to support your side while disputing opposing views. If it's not clear whether you're explaining something, exposition, or arguing a point, argumentation, you should ask your professor to clarify the assignment. Okay, so as we said before, I think a hybrid method in approaching these research papers is paramount. It's crucial. Given some expository sort of background information, given some current context on the contemporary issue that exists, and then sort of springboarding off of that and diving into the paper with regard to argumentation. And it's not required, but you can include, like we did with the argumentative paper, hopefully in the final drafts, a counterpoint to your point, just to show that you can concede someone else's viewpoint who's against your viewpoint and then refute that viewpoint. You can do that. You can include that towards the end of the essay, or you can go, as we talked about before with the argumentative paper, go paragraph by paragraph, point by point, where you concede and then refute the counterpoint. All right, so here we have topic and angle. So I think we know what topic is, but I'll go ahead and read this anyways. Define your topic and then narrow it down to something you can handle in the time you have available. Research papers tend to be large compared to other documents. As we know, the requirement for this research paper is 5 pages minimum, double-spaced. So you may be tempted to pick a topic that is very large. Example given: violence, eating disorders, alternative energy. But these topics are too broad. So instead, you need to choose a narrower topic within a larger topic. So the examples to give are recent incidents of violence on campus, how first-year university students with eating disorders adapt to dorm food. So instead of it just being eating disorders, they've narrowed it down to a specific angle in the topic. They distilled it down to the university students with eating disorders adapting to dorm food and using wind energy to power your dormitory. So something's more specific, right? Not just this general topic. It's too large, the scope of it is. If you just choose general topics, right? You're going to be writing forever. You're never going to get down to and let the essay distill down to its essence. Some ways to narrow your topic might be to consider a certain time period, a political ideology, or a specific group of individuals. We said already within this class, hopefully, the best essays will use contemporary, very urgent issues that are taking place in the world, but the better ones are the ones that narrow down to say something with greater proximity to us. A narrower topic will allow you to focus your research and come up with a more critical evaluation and discussion of the topic. The angle, the best way to narrow down your topic is to find the angle you want to pursue. Completely new topics are rare, but there are always new angles you can explore on existing topics. So if you think about going with the Black Lives Matter sort of subject matter for a research essay, I give background information. It's taken place throughout history. Um, Sort of the Black Lives movement of protesting to give equal civil rights. But there's a nuance that is taking place with the Black Lives Matters today, right? The police overreach, uh, individuals, African Americans that are dying by the hands of the police forces in various cities, their policies not being altered despite them saying they will, right? So to help you find your angle, ask yourself, what has changed about this topic recently? So bring it, thrust it forward after you give your background information, and then really let that lead into your thesis statement into what you're actually going to address on with regard to one side or other with the debate on the subject matter. How does this topic affect us locally? So that's sort of the scope. You need to think about that within the angle. When you have your general topic, you distill it down to a closer, um, more cogent, more precise part of the topic that brings it thrusts it into the contemporary times, and then you really try to develop an angle on the story, right? Give it some really nuance, uh, and then you really start to dive into the paper itself and really start to explore the topic. Okay, so after you choose your topic and allow it to distill down to sort of a distinguishable angle, then it's time to really ask yourself, how do I want to develop my research question? What is that going to be? Now it's time to develop, as you read here, your research question. Your research question should state your topic and identify an issue that your research will address. Uh, Never mind this is a separate book, chapter 22. Developing a research process, your research question also needs to be as focused as possible, so as specific as possible, so you can differentiate yourself from the general topic at hand. So too broad of a research question, why do people eat so much fast food? It's too broad. The scope is too large. We haven't narrowed it down to a specific angle at that point. A focused research question would be, on the other hand, why do university and college students turn to fast food as a way to help them handle stressful situation? Right, so it's really distilling down to something more specific. It's starting to excavate the very nuances of people eat too much fast food, right? Narrow it down to university students, and then asking the question of why. And then another too broadly, why do crows behave the way they do? Right? What is the way they do? We have no idea what that means. We need to be more specific. Focus research question, on the other hand, would be, why do crows tend to live here on campus in the winter, and how can we encourage them to go somewhere else? All right. These topics are general. They're not, despite them being focused, they're not important and urgent ones like I showed you in the last lecture where I gave you the topics that I think are most sort of salient in our society today. So please, I wouldn't really pursue an essay about crows and them living on campus and how can we allow them to have an alternate place to live. These are just examples of showing you how to go from a very general or too broad of a topic and narrowing it down to a focused research question. Okay, another too broad topic would be, are children becoming more violent? The question is just too broad, right? It's too generalized. So the focused research question would be, do violent video games cause children to act out more violently in their everyday lives? So the research question is important, and it might not even appear necessarily in your essay, but it helps you understand where you sit on the debate, right? Because you go out there and research, you're going to find some information on both sides that, yes, there is evidence that says articles out there that do dictate the idea that video games do affect children to be more violent, and you're going to find information that says no, that doesn't. And then what you want to do is really narrow it down to which one has the most robust information on it that distinctly points to one side of the argument, and that's the paper you want to write, because there's more information out there, bona fide information that's been vetted by you. And then you're ready to craft your thesis statement once you've answered your research question by collecting information. So once you have figured out your research question, you should turn it into a thesis that will guide your research. So it's going to morph your research question into a thesis statement. Your thesis, it won't be asking a question at this point. It'll be telling the reader, that this is a phenomenon that exists, that violence is propagated by video games on children, and for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? You give a nice summary next in great proximity to your thesis statement. Your thesis is the central guiding idea behind your paper. We know this already from our 2 prior essays. Your thesis will evolve into a fully developed thesis statement as you complete your research. The thesis statement is the anchor for all the points you will make in your paper. It should be supported by the research and developed by your critical assessment of the research you complete. So this is important because what happens is I've noticed, especially when we get to the argumentative paper and certainly with the research paper, is you're going to have some background information, the introductory paragraph. It's going to distill down to a thesis statement that tells the reader in a summary, it tells the reader what the rest of the essay is going to involve itself with, jumping on one side of the argumentation and debate. But as we progress through your points that you're going to make, we might, and I've seen this with argumentative essays in the past, and I've seen this with expository too, we don't restate or recraft our thesis statement to remind the reader, like 3 or 4 paragraphs in, what the heck this essay is even about, right? You don't want to leave it on the onus on the reader to have to go back to the first paragraph, the introductory paragraph, and the last lines of it to keep rereading the thesis statement. You remind the reader every now and again, right? It's like spinning a wheel. You don't have to keep spinning it, but just spin it once and every now and again come back to hit it again so it keeps spinning, right? You have to come back to the thesis statement. It's got to be anchored back to the thesis statement, your points that you're making, your topic sentences. So my thesis is that, I'm just reading from the slide, fast food contains ingredients like salt, protein, and carbohydrates, and fat. They give our bodies short-term fuel for overcoming threatening moments. This craving is due to evolution. Our minds, when anxious or stressed, start thinking about the needs of short-term survival, not long-term health. My hunch is that crows congregate on our campus in the winter because there's ample food. This is just going back to the broad versus focus topics, right? Winter because there's ample food available and sources of warmth. Also, they are intelligent birds and have strong social bonds, so campus provides a consistent, safe place for them to live together through the winter. My thesis is that today's children fantasize more about violence due to video games, but these games actually make children less violent because they can work through their aggression in a virtual environment. Okay. So they took the research question and they crafted it into a thesis statement, and then they would, at this point, despite not knowing the answer if this is right or wrong, right? This individual, say for the last one, not knowing if violence is less prevalent in children who play violent video games because they're able to release that energy, that negative energy. They don't know if the answer is that or not yet, Then you go out there and you search, and then you finally realize, wow, I was wrong. So then you need to go back and recraft your thesis statement to be right, or choose another topic. Let it evolve into something else maybe. Okay, so looking further into the research essay, we could break it down as the following: the body, following similarly other essays we've written already. The body of the research paper can be organized in a variety of ways. It will often begin with a review of existing literature on your topic. Here are 3 common ways to organize the remainder of your draft. So when they say existing literature, almost like a literature review, this is something we probably will include. It'll just be part of the background information. You're going over past things that have been published about this topic, right? So continuing with the Black Lives Matter movement, you would talk about the history of it, the background information, and you would inevitably touch upon literature. And we say literature, we mean anything that was a text, right? So that could be journal articles, newspaper articles outlining past events that were Black Lives Matter, articles that can define what Black Lives Matter is, where it started, its inception, where it is today, right? That would be part of your existing literature on the topic, the review of that. And then you would break it down into maybe what we see here. Issue. Divide your information into 2 or 5 major issues that you want to discuss in your research paper. That could be the summary, right? X, Y, and Z after your thesis. Specifically, pay attention to issues on which people tend to disagree, or major points that people tend to discuss when they consider a topic, because you want it to be controversial. You want it to be debatable. You don't want it to be a rock hard, dead solid principle. Then you have nothing to argument on behalf of unless you're nuancing that principle, right? You're not going to write an essay arguing that gravity exists unless you're adding something new, right, to the already existing literature on it, right? So it has to be debatable. Chronology, divide your information into 2 or 5 historical time periods. If or before the event, start or the event, during the event, and of the event, the current, and then aftermath. If you're at before aftermath, at the aftermath, then arrange your information by sorting out what happened in each of those time periods. So again, continue with a very contemporary issue. That would be Black Lives Matter. Continue with that idea, that concept for subject matter, right? I would talk about the history, historical implications of this movement, right? And then I would thrust it forward as we do here. I don't know if we can address the aftermath. We could sort of talk about how they're wanting to establish what police forces are currently doing, their protocol, right, at the police station level and at governmental level, right? How they're recrafting legislation in order to either defund or retrain, most likely retrain these police forces. You just have to think about that, the chronology of it, right? Then arrange your information by sorting out what happened in each of those time periods. So that's a simple way to really write an essay, right? Give a background information of the issue, touching on past texts that talk about and sort of help us understand where the issue is. Chronologically, give us a sort of understanding of where the issue has evolved from, its genesis or inception, and then where it is currently. And then your argumentation would springboard off of that. Divide your information into 3 categories: review of the facts, discussion of how others, especially people with opposing views, interprets the facts, and discussion of how you and people who agree with you interpret the facts. Then you would go out there and give us some really a strong thesis statement, and then give us some really strong opinions by those of outside sources of points of authority that are speaking on the subject matter to help underpin our own thesis statement, right? Okay, choosing an appropriate style. Expository research papers tend to be written in the plain style, while argumentative research papers, the one we're writing, use both plain and persuasive styles. So we spoke about the idea of having a hybrid paper, both expository and argumentative. And you can see here how they're both beneficial to speak in the plain style, but also the persuasive style. Combining those two. The plain style is especially helpful for explaining the facts about your topic and discussing what happened. Right? So we wouldn't want to be overtly persuasive we want to be sort of tactful and diplomatic and plain spoken when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, the historical context of it, right, and the violence that has taken place against it, and what the genesis of it was due to police violence. And I'm using this example. You certainly do not have to write a paper on this. I'm just using it as a sort of protracted example throughout this lecture. And then you wouldn't want to be persuasive. You just want to lay the facts out in plain language. The persuasive style, however, should be used when you're trying to influence readers to accept your point of view. So that call for action that you might have at the end of your essay, that I think will be an important part, like in your argumentative, to have a call for action at the end of your essay, where you challenge the reader to want to believe in the same thing and move forward with the proper actions because of the newfound knowledge that they have. So here we go. Strike an objective and academic tone. So write efficiently and authoritatively and focus on presenting information to your readers as clearly as possible. You should let the information be the main attraction of the paper, not you. Generally, you will avoid using first person in a research paper. That's a hard and fast rule, not using I, but if you happen to enter the I in your paper, I'm not going to disparage you from that. Other classes, you're probably not going to be allowed to. But the more and more English classes are evolving, the I is okay because people have personal stories that connect to the research they're doing, right? So sometimes the I is important. Use top-down paragraphs, so just the construction, the mechanics of your paragraph they're addressing here. Consistently put each paragraph's main claim or statement in the first or second sentence of the paragraph, i.e. the topic sentence, right? You have the first or second sentence, usually the first of each paragraph, right? Each paragraph dedicates itself to a new topic that builds on the thesis statement itself and continues to reach back to the thesis statement. Then use the remainder of the paragraph to prove or support that claim or statement. Putting topic sentences at the top of each paragraph will help your readers locate the most important information. It's just a great organizational tool, right, to organize the essay this way. It's nothing new. Use concise sentences. Your sentences should be concise and straightforward. In each sentence, move your subject, what the sentence is about, to an earlier position and use active verbs where possible. Look for ways to minimize your use of excessive prepositional phrases. So connect, use concise language and sentence structure, but also connect each sentence back to something. It has some sort of mooring or anchoring to either the thesis statement or the topic sentence. And if it has a mooring to the topic sentence, surely the topic sentence has anchoring or mooring to the thesis statement. So you can see we're building a mosaic, right? All these connections that are being made, a spider web of topic sentences being bound to the thesis statement, and then the sentences of each paragraph being bound to the topic sentence. Minimize passive voice as much as possible. I mentioned this in, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 different essays, expository essays, where people were using the idea of to be. Like for instance, in their thesis statement, say today, within this essay, I'm going to be talking about, right? That's passive voice. It's one way to sort of engage passive voice. We want to use active voice. Within this essay, I will address or I will explore. That's active voice. Or I will explore would be even more active. I will explore X, Y, and Z within this essay. So example given here, passes. These interpretations are reinforced by the existing literature, unquote. However, active voice is often stronger and easier to read, so you should look for places where you can turn passive sentences into active sentences. Active voice will help your readers understand who or what did the action. Example given, quote, the existing literature confirms these interpretations, unquote. Reduce nominalizations. Because research papers are sometimes technical, they may overuse nominalizations, which can cloud the meaning of the sentence. A nominalization happens when the action in the sentence appears as a noun rather than a verb. Hint, look for words that end in tion. Okay, conclusion. The conclusion, like past papers of your research paper, should be similar in many ways to your introduction. When concluding, you should restate your main point, your thesis, and stress the importance of your subject one final time. You should also briefly discuss the further implications of your topic. So that discussion we talked about. What's going to happen moving forward, a call for action for the reader. Your research paper's conclusion should make up to 5 moves. So make an obvious transition would be one from the body to the conclusion. It should state your main point or thesis statement. It should restate it actually, right? Not do it verbatim. Not completely verbatim repeat your thesis statement in the conclusion. It should stress again the importance of your topic to the readers, and it should call your readers to action. And it should also briefly discuss the future of the topic. Your conclusion should be brief. It doesn't have to be as long as your introduction, because often only one paragraph in length. Your goal is to leave your readers with a clear sense of what you've discovered and what should be done about it moving forward. Okay, as always, questions. Please email me if you have any questions, concerns, concepts that need clarification. Your expository essay grades are posted at Blackboard along with my comments on your essay. So please look at those comments, check that out. The comments have a lot to do with the mistakes you made, especially with the MLA, say the works cited, the in-text citations, just some of the different way you were quoting or paraphrasing or summarizing. So check that out because it's going to be crucial moving forward as you're crafting your final draft for your argumentative essay and then your draft that you're going to turn in for this research essay at the end of this semester. So check that out. All right, guys, email me if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.